Hey everyone, it's Norm Farrar with Tim Jordan, and welcome to Legion Live. Usually this is Tim's spiel. I don't know why I'm doing this, but anyways, Tim said he's going to lob that over to me. We're going to be talking about something really cool today, and that's going to be lowering freight costs. You've probably heard about it, and we're going to just kind of walk you through what's happening. So Tim's got some really great information. And Tim, let's take it from there. What have you been hearing?
Yeah, well, we know it was a big issue having our shipping costs increase, specifically from China to the U.S. It's been the talk for 9 months, 10 months, maybe even longer. Shipping containers that used to be $3,000, sometimes now are costing, $20,000 just to get to port. And then once they get to port, we can't get them in, right? It's a giant disaster. So I, had some pretty interesting conversations last week with some people in the shipping industry that were confirming, prices are dropped, but it's not going to last. I thought, well, that sucks. Why isn't it going to last? And I started digging more. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about the geopolitical situation as well as the logistical situation that's causing some of this, which I think is important because we don't want to get too excited. Like, we need to understand that prices aren't just resolving and going back down. Like, I actually think they're going to go back up, but there might be a golden opportunity to save some money if you can jump in the next maybe week or so, maybe 2 weeks, get a shipment confirmed, as long as you don't run into another situation that's actually causing some of these lower shipping costs. So I know it sounds very cryptic, but let me get into it. So we've got a few things going on in China right now, specifically in the shipping industry. One is there's just not enough ships. There's not enough containers, right? So with this giant demand coming from Asia to the West, usually the US, they're running out of ships, they're running out of containers. And when you run out of supply, being space, the prices go up. We know about the 70 or 80, whatever it is, container ships parked off of Long Beach, off of LA port, and they can't get in. The news isn't talking about it, but there's also like 160 ships anchored out outside of Shanghai and Ningbo right now that can't get in and out. And a lot of this is happening because of reduced manpower, reduced labor at the ports, trucking companies, freight companies, all these things because of COVID, right? So when the prices dropped the other day, or maybe last week, we started asking why. And let me talk about some of the things that have caused that. So the prices are increased because we have less supply. We have less space. And when I say supply, I don't mean products. I mean space on ships, right? So of course, that's going to drive prices up. But two interesting things are happening in China right now. One is the upcoming Golden Holiday. The Golden Holiday is, I think, Norm, was it a 7-day holiday where ports aren't operating, where factories aren't operating. It's kind of a slowdown, right? It's essentially a shutdown, but it slows things down, which means less products are getting to the port that need to be shipped, less things are getting shipped. So the shipping companies will start to reduce their prices a little bit to try to incentivize people to ship at that time if they can get through a port. That always happens, every year about this time, shipping prices slightly decrease because of that. But something else big just happened, and that is power restrictions and governing power usage in China. Now, I'm not smart enough to know why exactly that's happening. There's a lot of theories and speculations about stuff going on, conspiracy theories. But the truth is the Chinese government has reduced the use of coal, which is the main fuel supply for power generation in China. Right? Some people are saying, in fact, China's saying, it's to reduce emissions, but a lot of people think they need to hoard coal or what's the word I'm looking for? Throttle the use of coal for this upcoming winter, right? So either way, whatever the reason is, they said, stop using all this coal, slow it down, and we're doing power restrictions for the factories. So that means there's less shipments going out too, because people's products aren't getting done. So when you have a limited supply of space on the ships, prices go up. But when you have a holiday that slows things down, you have a power shortage that's going to slow things down. The shipping companies have to react by saying, crap, we're not getting shipments, let's lower them. But here's the problem. If you've got a holiday where the ports are closed and the factories are closed, and then you've got an issue where the factories aren't producing stuff, we're in this crazy matrix zone where we see the costs of our shipping going down, but we can't get our shipments out. It's like this terrible catch-22. We're like, shipping price has gone down. And the factories are like, your order's not going to be ready for another 30 days. What? The other thing that happened on top of this, right? So we've got supply and demand. We've got supply, which is limited, but demand just went down. and supply actually just went up. And this is in response to the shipping companies making some very, very large changes in their global shipping infrastructure. Let me explain what that is. The shipping costs are 10 times what they used to be, almost 10 times in some cases, what they used to be from Asia to the US, from China to the US. So shipping companies realized, hey, with this much demand, we need to capitalize on this. Let's make more adjustments in our global supply chains to, get a bigger piece of this. Whenever we see demand go up, people respond, just like when the demand for 3PLs and warehousing went up. Now everybody's getting a 3PL space, right? So a lot of these big shipping carriers started taking ships that normally run their Asia to Middle East or Asia to Africa supply lines and rerouting them to their Asia to the US line, which means more surplus, right? More space. Okay. So we're starting to create more space, which is going to drive prices down. The other thing that's happened are a lot of these Asia to US shipping lanes relied on super carriers, these massive cargo ships. And there's only a few ports, especially on the West Coast, that can handle the massive cargo ships. And those ports are backlogged. So a lot of these shipping companies did is they started getting their hands on smaller ships. They started repurposing smaller ships that might not make a lot of trips across the Pacific, and now they're running back and forth the Pacific all the time. Or they took ships that were actually taken out of service because they were older, they were worn down. They're throwing Band-Aids on those things, dropping containers on them and moving. What that does is gives them more shipping space, but it also helps them use smaller ships, which are able to access smaller ports, which aren't as backlogged. All right. So the ability to ship, right, our shipping capacity has gone up. The rerouting of shipping lines, more boats, more containers, less product because the ports are shutting down, because the factories are shutting down for a while. It's all great. The prices are dropping. Problem is nobody can get their stuff out. If I'd look at a crystal ball, I'd say that it's frustrating to see these prices go down because they're not going to stay down, right? As soon as the factories kick back on, as soon as the ports open back up, that demand is going to go way up again. And even though we've got a few more ships, a few more containers running routes right now, the demand for those products is going to have a big backlog, especially coming into Q4 and just, the backlog that's already existed. So I still think it's going to be 12 to 18 months before things start to actually normalize a little bit. They'll probably never go back down to the level that they were. But we say all this just to inform everybody of what's happening in the space, why shipping container costs have gone down, and to tell you, hey, if you happen to be able to get your stuff out right now, ship as much as you humanly can because it's cheap. But most likely you're going to beat your head against the wall trying to get someone to actually handle your products or get your factory to get them out because there's so many shutdowns. So hopefully that makes sense. What do you think, Norm?
Yeah. One of the questions that what are we looking at? We were looking at, 20, 25,000. I actually had somebody email me, said that they were quoted $30,000 just about 2 weeks ago, which I thought was ridiculous, but I thought 20,000 was ridiculous, not too long ago. What type of drop are we looking at right now, Tim?
Well, it depends, of course, on the carrier and depends on who's quoting it. But we're looking at about a 30% decrease in a 1 week period. So what used to be a $20,000 container is now sitting at like a $14,000 container, which is pretty substantial. Now, air prices haven't been affected that much. It's mostly ocean, but a 30% drop is nice if you can get your hands on a confirmed booking with it.
Yeah, especially coming into fourth quarter now.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Now, you were talking about a little bit earlier on, these 80 ships off of LA and, just trying to dock, right? Are there any ports that you've heard of that we should be looking at? So lower shipping costs is great, but if you can't unload the bloody product, it's not going to do you any good. Should you be looking at other ports?
Well, that's also a catch-22 because there are some ports on the West Coast that are smaller. They're shallower. They have less capacity, and these smaller boats are getting into them now. But when you look at the states that the ports are in, some other crazy things are happening. One reason, especially for the California port shortage, capacity shortage, is labor. Now, I don't want to get political, but there's some crazy things happening, especially in California. California is one of the most lenient states to be offering unemployment assistance to employees because of COVID. So essentially what's happened, it's happened in pretty much all the states to an extent, but largely in California, is the government is paying blue collar workers more to sit at home than they would be working. And frankly, a port is a lot of blue collar folks. They've got a lot of material handlers, truck drivers, crane operators. And if I'm going to get paid more for sitting at home, why on earth am I going to work? So they can't find labor. So sometimes these ports are down to a third of their labor capacity. Even if they get stuff on the port, they can't find truck drivers. If they can't get truck drivers, they can't get people to work in the warehouses to actually transition from the containers to trucks. It's just a giant mess. So I advise looking away from some of these heavily unionized, more liberal with government assistance states, we'll say that, like Washington and California, because it's really causing some problems with the labor market. And what seems to be working even better right now is coming to the East Coast. So it looks counterintuitive to actually put your stuff on a ship that's going to go south to the Panama Canal, cut through the Gulf of Mexico, and hit the East Coast. But ports like Houston, and Houston is pretty far inland, but there's a giant shipping channel that goes all the way. Houston's like the third largest container port in the U.S., and Houston is pumping out containers right now. So Houston, New Orleans, Mobile, Alabama, Charlotte, Savannah, all of these southeastern ports are doing pretty well. When you get up into like New Jersey, New York, Long Island, which were traditionally large volume ports on the East Coast, they also are in states where there's a lot of incentive to not work, a lot of government assistance going on. So you run into that same problem. So right now, if you're shipping, we seem to be seeing some faster times coming in from Texas all the way through the Gulf Coast, up the lower southeast till you get to about Virginia.
So you might spend a few extra dollars on these, 4 or 5 days it'll take, but it'll be well worth it because the product will be unloaded quicker.
Yeah, and then the ports are cheaper to operate. So the port clearing costs, the material handling, the trucking, it's all cheaper in the southeast than on the west coast. So yeah, you might get to the coast on a ship going to the west coast faster than coming to the east, but that boat's probably going to sit for a long time. So it seems to be faster to come to the southeast, east coast, Gulf Coast right now.
So I guess when you're looking at knowing your numbers, we talk about that quite a bit. We have to know our numbers. Well, I would keep the projection, like if you're able to get out, or maybe you'll get out using this new calculation, but I would keep the calculation at the 20,000 plus range.
Assume the worst.
You don't want to cut yourself short on that, just in case, right? And the other thing, I think everybody's putting up their price. Big paranoia out there. What's going to happen? This $20,000 is, it's going to add to my cost. Well, it's going to add to everybody's cost. So one way or the other, if you can take a $7,000 decrease and take advantage of that, that's perfect. But I think the calculation still has to be at the other range.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's tough. So good news piled on bad news, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, it's typical. But you just got to roll with the punch. And again, I can't stress enough going into fourth quarter that with these calculations, I mean, if you have the inventory, if you're lucky enough to have the inventory at your 3PL or in Amazon, you're in a winning position because it's going to be an inventory play again this year.
That's it. Absolutely. All right. That's all I got, Norm.
That's it.
We're at about our 12 or 13 minute mark, which is about right. Guys, hopefully this has been helpful, maybe not in like actionable content, but just understand what's going on. When we understand what's going on in the world right now, it helps us make informed decisions and kind of ignore some of the hype and the fluff and the exciting, shiny objects and prices are dropping, the world's back to normal again. No, we just need to understand that there's some dips and fluctuations. Make sure to join our Facebook group, folks. If you're listening right now, if you're watching this on YouTube, Private Label Legion Facebook group, you can type in your browser, thelegion.group, and go to it. Good content that we post in there consistently and some really good, helpful folks. Also, if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, please hit that subscribe button, or as Norm likes to say, smash that subscribe button and show us some love on our channel. It keeps us motivated to keep putting out good content. Anything else, Norm?
I think that's it. You covered it. Probably the most important thing you said is don't buy into the hype. It just because it says, or people are going to jump on this bandwagon and everything's dropping, don't buy into it. It's short term.
Yep.
All right.
Awesome. We'll see you all on the next Legion Live next week. We love you. We appreciate you, and take care.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.